And we're live. I think we're live everywhere. Yes. Okay. Everything's green on my end. Welcome everyone to another episode of React Native Live. This is episode 11. I feel like it's been a long time since I've done this. I'm really excited to have, as you all can see, William Candillon on the show with me. William, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on. It's been a while since I had an episode. It's almost been like 2 months. I try to do one every month, but last one coincided at a local AI conference that I was at, so I had to kind of shift things around a little bit. But yeah, while we wait for everyone to log on, go ahead and let us know where you're joining in from. I kind of like to do that, see where everyone's coming in from. I'll go first. I'm Mazen Chami, and as you all know, I live in Durham, North Carolina. And I will be your host today with William. William, where are you joining us from?
Beautiful Zurich, Switzerland.
Zurich, Switzerland. Nice. How's the weather there right now?
It's okay. It's getting springy, so the spring is full on. It's nice.
Yeah. For us, we had our spring like pollen season. Everything turned green, went away, and then now it's a little bit chilly. We'll have a chilly day, and then we'll have a very warm day. But in North Carolina, summers are brutal. So however long we can wait for summers to come, it's perfect for us. So William, you're an independent developer, and you're joining us to chat about React Native Skia today. I've seen a lot of stuff. Your videos, how you like do your animations for your videos and the production, it's beautiful. I want to meet your production team for sure.
You're meeting the production team right now.
Nice. That's awesome. The one-man show. I love this.
And I mean, all the graphic motions in the videos are done with Skia, right? And I use a tool which is called Remotion, where you can run Skia drawings into a video, basically.
Yeah, that's perfect promotion right there for what we're talking about, right? Your videos and all that gets to all happen with the software that you've built. So you're building the software. That's what's it called? Marketing the software, right?
Yes.
That's a really cool thing of saying it.
And actually, Remotion is really what pushed the creation of React Native Skia, because I used to make the YouTube videos, and the fact that in React Native there were no, so can it be done in React Native, where we try to challenge, what we can do with React Native, and back then there were no graphic primitives. And I was kind of having fun trying to do something with the little we had. So I was not thinking, we should bring graphic primitives to React Native and so on. I was just having fun. But then when Remotion came in and I started to use it for my video, so then I was having access to a full web canvas to make the video and so on. So you could like do blurs, advanced gradients, shaders. And then this is really when the pain of using this great graphic and not having it in React Native became too strong. And here I'm like, okay, no, that's it. We need to try to do something about it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned your YouTube. I have to plug in your YouTube here. I posted it in the comments, but / at WCandillon. That I will say, for anyone that's starting off that wants to learn animations or just kind of how to do things, your series, like, can it be done in React Native? I believe you have 5 series, if I'm seeing correct so far.
I think
5 seasons.
Yeah.
That's great. And I know personally, I mentioned this to you, and I've mentioned it on the podcast. Like, I learned most of my animation stuff from watching these videos that you had, for sure. So
nice.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and usually I like to do some icebreakers and kind of learn a little bit more about our guests and stuff like that. So, William, what are your interests and hobbies outside of tech?
I would say I'm a fitness enthusiast. I love CrossFit. Now there is a new trend. I don't know if a new fitness trend. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called Hyrox. No.
Hasn't made it to the US yet.
It's huge in Europe. It's from Germany. And so it's a bit like CrossFit, but a bit more accessible to everyone. So really, I'm a lot into fitness outside tech.
Nice. What? So just CrossFit specifically?
Yeah, CrossFit, like gym stuff, and
Okay. I'm always on this on the radio, on React Native Radio, and on here, hoping someone is a big football, or soccer fan, but that just keeps going out the window. So that conversation will happen at some point.
Yeah, unfortunately, not with me. I don't know. I know you had Mark Roussavi. Was he a soccer fan? He was, but
he's not really interested in it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he kind of follows sometimes, but not really. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the World Cup is coming, so hopefully, that stirs some more conversation. And I believe Switzerland will be part of it too, so that'll be cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so we haven't started yet. For anyone that's people that are joining us now, let us know where you're coming in from. We'll start in a couple minutes. Grab a coffee, grab a drink, wherever you're joining us from. Sit back and kind of enjoy this, and we'll talk about Skia very soon. So William, before we kind of kick things off, can you introduce yourself to our audience and tell us how you got to where you're at now, your tech journey through this time?
Yeah, of course. So I work as an independent software engineer. I mean, it depends on how far back you want to go in, but I started actually in Zurich as actually a backend developer working for a database startup. And how I switched to front end is actually when React came out. When they were doing the diffing of the DOM and the snapshot and so on, it was actually a lot of concept that we would use in database programming, right? How to efficiently make the change and things like this. So even though I was not a front-end developer, I was like, okay, this looks really interesting, and it really caught my attention. I thought the programming model also with components and things like this was very strong. And then when React Native came out, I was like, whoa, I felt the opportunity to build truly native apps using the same programming model was just extremely compelling. And so that's how I got into it. And so speaking about hobbies, because I was a lot into fitness, I thought maybe I could join the two together, and I started to build a fitness app in React Native. So this was 10 years ago, exactly, actually.
Nice.
And actually, when working on this app, I got so excited about some of the technical aspects that I started to share online and through Medium post and things like this. But at the end, this took over more sharing the technical knowledge, and so this is when also I started to do YouTube and the Can It Be Done in React Native series, which is really I remember in 2018, 2019, I would use some apps, and there were some really interactions that was fascinating me. And then I was thinking, okay, let's try to replicate it and learn how it's done. And so that's how the series started. And then after a while, so React Native Skia. So then I switched a bit more from just using the stuff to building the stuff. So React Native Skia. Now we did a big announcement with Redraw, React Native Web GPU. So now I'm a little bit more on the building side and not so much content creation, but hopefully still there's still some videos to come and tutorials.
Yeah, hopefully.
But I have less time to do it. I used to do this almost 100%. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and hopefully season 6 comes out soon.
So finishing season 5 would be nice. And I do have, I mean, if I go in my notes, I do have a list of things and I want to do, and there is enough to finish season 5 and maybe do season 6. But I need to manage the time properly.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. We all have a lot going on and stuff like that. So, but I'm actually excited once we get into the demos and the discussions around stuff. I'm excited to hear more about Redraw, which you announced recently, but also we'll start from the beginning, Skia and all that kind of stuff also. So again, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited about this episode and kind of hearing more about all this stuff and actually seeing it in action too, for sure. Yeah, so to our audience, like, please keep the chat going. It's always fun interacting with you all and hearing your questions. I'm sure William will be able to give us all the knowledge that he has for this. And
yeah, I see an interesting comment. Cloud plus Remotion is my video editor now, which I think it's really interesting because I remember Remotion is built by Johnny Berger. And I remember like the original idea was really like, wow, After Effects, it's so painful. Like I wish we could do graphic motions programmatically. And obviously there's a lot of advantages to do graphic motions through code because, things are data driven. You have like so much more control. And it's interesting how AI basically made this like so much more powerful because suddenly it's like such a strong way to instrument, to drive basically the tool and to automatically build graphic motions. It's really interesting how basically the value proposition has kind of exploded because of LLMs and things like this.
Yeah. JP also has, he also works at Infinite Red. He has a couple of videos out on how he had this happen. And I think he had one pretty cool video where he just kind of gave it a prompt and let it do its own thing. And it did a pretty cool video for him. So hopefully he can share one of those and, audience can kind of take a look at it. Well, while we're talking about, on the AI stuff, how do you feel about AI is good at writing graphic programming details, or do you still write a lot of your work by hand?
I think it's really good. I still sometimes have to do some manual work. It's really in place, so it's interesting because it's usually like sometimes in unexpected places and moments. So sometimes I would expect the Claude, for instance, to really execute perfectly, but it doesn't. And sometimes I'm surprised the other way around. But I have to say it's pretty impressive. Like if you know what you want, and even some creative ideas I think are pretty good sometimes. And I'm genuinely impressed. I'm genuinely impressed. Yeah.
And we were just talking about it earlier, right? Like as we were getting set up, you were saying how hopefully you remember how to write it by hand.
Yes.
The demo is going to be done that way. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it's nice. It's in terms of like creative work, it does lets you focus more on the actual ideas and thinking about like the process and like more the mental model, because you can outsource basically all the other stuff. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you still get to. I always, do it like specifically on my client projects. I get to code the fun stuff, the stuff that I want to code by hand, stuff that I've enjoyed in the past doing. And then, like you said, offload the stuff that could be tedious, stuff that, like tests, for example.
Exactly.
Hand that off to the LLM to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I think, shifting into our topic, we've titled this episode High Performance UI with React Native Skia, kind of getting that buttery smooth animations. And I think another big thing, that we'll get to see here is the developer experience that Skia brings to mobile and making it, simple to do such animations. I think, William, if we were on a very long elevator ride, what is your elevator pitch for Skia? What is Skia from, basic?
Yeah, so Skia is a 2D graphic library from Google. It's pretty ubiquitous. So it's what's used on Android, Google Chrome. So wherever Google needs to display pixels, they use Skia. It's a very good library. And what React Native Skia is a binding to this library in JavaScript, as well as a reconcilier that allows you to use elements like SVG style elements in your React Native app, and you can integrate all sorts of effects, shaders, like blurs, like anything fancy. So anything, for instance, you can do in Figma, you can do in React Native Skia.
Yeah, perfect, awesome. Yeah, and I think if we were to pull up the documentation and look at the documentation, Skia has a lot of different I don't know if you would call them primitives, but you have different shapes, you have letters, text that you can
Text
do, and all this
layout,
kind of
yes.
stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot of different options that you can kind of essentially compose together, and we'll get to see it. You kind of get to paint it all on a canvas and animate it and move it around and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be really cool for us to see later. One question that I have is, in today's world, and I think, as LLMs and, AI in general starts, people start leveraging it to build libraries out there,
Yes.
I feel like very soon, I think soon we're going to get to a point when, NPM packages are just going to like exponentially start growing, and who knows, we might start getting more animation libraries out there. But,
Yes.
in today's world, I think, in my mind, I'm going to put Skia aside for now, just because for this conversation, we have just pure React Native animation, animated API. We have Reanimated from Software Mansion. And then just recently we have React Native Ease that kind of came out in another animation library, right? And then, in this conversation, we have Skia. Skia, like you mentioned, more 2D. The others, not necessarily 2D specific, but can you give me a couple scenarios of where you feel like you would reach for Skia, definitely in this scenario, but then you would also put Skia aside and reach for one of the other packages in other scenarios?
So Skia is an extremely powerful library. You can virtually do anything, and also it integrates with cameras, videos, potentially native views as well. But it is so I mean, here I don't know if you can see my screen, but anyways,
Sure.
when you start a React Native Skia Canva, you enter almost a different world. It's you have the React Native tree views and everything, and then whatever is in your Canva is like its own reconcilier. So the elements actually don't belong to, they're different than a view or things like this. So it is extremely powerful, but you do pay a price of it being like slightly less integrated than other things, than pure native code. And it is somewhat of a heavy dependency, a few megabytes, right? So of course, if you really need it, it's perfect. But if you don't, if you barely need it, maybe you might consider other options potentially. And in terms of animations, it integrates with Reanimated. We have like a really tight integration with Reanimated. It's our goal was really at some point to say, okay, when you start a Skia drawing and you animate it, it should be as fast as if the user would have written the C++ code directly and run it. And I mean, we apply some techniques to do this, but there are different also techniques you can, more declarative, more imperative. There's things to consider. There is like two kinds of rendering modes. So one which is called retained mode, which is, think of it of like DOM in HTML. So you have your DOM tree, and it's like persistent kind of, and you can update any properties. You can say, oh, in this node, I change this property and so on, which is essentially what we have with the Canva elements and all the elements. And then there is like an immediate mode, which is on every animation frame. You say, okay, these are my drawing commands, execute. So more like video game style, where you have like an animation loop and you draw your scene. And in the documentation, we try to guide the users also on which mode to use and when to use it.
That's a nice way to kind of put it, because just like with any library and any package that you package that you add to your dependency, to your node modules, like it comes with an overhead, right?
Yes.
Picking anyone outside of React, that was the whole idea behind the how many years ago was it when React Native decided to do I like to call the slimmining, where they decide to offload packages to the community and all that, right? The idea was to keep React Native lean and,
Yes.
straightforward. But, there's some stuff that's not in there and that's intentional. So bringing anything in has that overhead. So I think kind of understanding
Yes.
what it is that you're bringing in and why you're bringing it in for the purpose, right? Like, do you need to bring in Lottie, for example, for that one animation that you have on that one screen, right?
Yes.
Lottie's a big package. Do you need that? You have to kind of think about that. Well, you already have Skia. Can you
Yes.
implement that in Skia since you're using Skia on more than a couple other pages? There's all that
And-
overhead.
Yes, and to this point, for instance, one thing I'm very excited about is I think in React Native core now they add more and more support for advanced SVG, CSS properties, right? Like linear gradients
Yes.
and I think it's so nice that if you don't have to do Skia to use Skia for this, like please me, I think it's really nice that you can do this directly, no extra dependencies. These use cases are really nice. I mean, Skia is really like the big thing, right? If you have also, I mean, now we do, with WebGPU, which also, so we have a migration where we use Skia on top of WebGPU. You can do insane things like 3D scenes, 2D scenes, and so on. And this is really where Skia should be used. And so if like for smaller graphic things, it used to be that even for small things like a simple gradient, you would need to use Skia, but it's almost like too bad. And it looks like now other libraries or even the React Native core is like catching up to it, which I think is good. And
Yeah.
And I mentioned the web GPU stuff. You know how in React Native they were like the legacy architecture and the current architecture, and it took a while to migrate. So we have the same a bit with React Native Skia, where we're migrating from an old, current, but old Skia backend called Ganesh to a new backend called Graphite, which uses web GPU. And it's like an ongoing migration that is taking a bit of time. So people can already use it through the @next release channel, but it's going to take a while for, it's a heavy migration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And so you also mentioned Redraw. This is your new project that you're kind of embarking on. Well, what is Redraw? How does it relate? How does it work with or relate to Skia?
Yeah, so there were some stuff I always wanted to do in React Native Skia that I could not do, and mainly, so in Skia you can draw paths, and we're gonna, I guess, together we're gonna draw some paths, and you can set a color and you can set a stroke width, let's say, to the path. And what I always wanted to do, especially in my videos, was to, instead of setting a stroke width of 30, so a scalar value, I wanted to pass a curve to say, at these points, the stroke width is going to be this value, but then it's going to go down to this value and go up to this value. And same for the color. I always wanted to have the color follow a curve, namely the curve you're drawing. So following the shapes. And because now we were starting to use WebGPU, and we had this unified Android time across libraries, I saw an opportunity to finally build these primitives, and that's essentially what Project Redraw is. And it integrates nicely with Skia and anything basically that runs on top of WebGPU. And we launched it as a technical preview last Friday, and the reception has been really heartwarming. So I was really cool to see. Yeah,
that was awesome. Yeah, that was a good one. And Sean is asking a question. Congrats on the announcement of Redraw. Been checking out the demos and it looks awesome. Would love to know when you would reach for Redraw over Skia.
So it's really if your path has a color which is, so either you draw your path using a gradient, but in Skia you have the geometry of gradient is like very simple. So it's either a circle or a line, essentially linear gradient, radial gradient, angular gradient. And same for the stroke width. The stroke width is fixed. So if anything where I would want to have something a bit better, I would reach for Redraw. And also, anything that has blurs, and you want high performance blurs, I would reach for Redraw, because the way we do blurs is very different from Skia. So Skia does what we call raster blur. So it looks up the pixel information and does an average. It's an extremely slow operation. And in our case, you should only do this for images. So if for any other vector shape, you can potentially calculate the blur directly based on the geometry information. And the way we do it is actually really fun, because you need to calculate anti-aliasing. So meaning you need to understand how much the shape covers one single pixel, and that gives you an alpha value. And that's how you get like crisp paths and circles. And what we do is that you basically can play with, you can transform this value to assume maybe like the shape is expanding or things like this. And then what creates this beautiful, so it's called vector feather. So it's like beautiful blurs, but which are calculated based on vector information. And things where I would absolutely reach for Skia over Redraw is things like text layouts, font handling, things like this.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. I think, this is like the perfect opportunity. We've kind of set all this kind of going. Let's move into our demo. Can you show off some of this stuff? Right. And what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to put in the comments, all this will be publicly available on our repo. You all can kind of check out, here's the link to the repo. It's in the chat. Go ahead and take a look at it, in your own time. But, William's going to show us the demo here now.
Yeah, so I prepared a couple of examples. So first, we want to draw the path. And so this is let's say a random SVG path. And we cannot see it completely. So maybe we want to scale it. We want to give it some nice colors, maybe some nice effects. And maybe we want to build an animation and then use gestures. And maybe in terms of the styling, we want to go even crazier and use like some shaders and things like this. So let's see how far we go. But yeah, so here I have an SVG path, an image. I'm drawing the path already, but it needs to be scaled to fit into the page. And I have an image which I loaded here, which maybe we're gonna use instead of the background. Should be better.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention as you're going here is, most of this like what you have up there, SVG string, these are all essentially paths, like, from
X
Figma. And Y values.
Yes. So these are represent commands, right? Curves. So you see this means the M means move to. So this means move to X value 14, Y value 248. And this means the C here means cubic Bezier curve. Yeah. This is the, This is the first control point, second control point, destination. And then here we have another curve and so on.
Yeah. I urge anyone that's never written an SVG file from by hand to do that. It's actually pretty cool and pretty interesting to kind of see how you're doing it within your SVG canvas and all that, getting A to B to C sort of thing.
These are extremely ubiquitous primitive, right? You have it from Figma anywhere. You have in also the number of websites where you can download these SVG paths. There is a tremendous amount. So here I have so maybe I'm gonna display the image, and I have, so here I give the dimensions of the Canva, and I have fit equals cover. So I have like a cover mode that should, and I need to import image. So that should do the scaling of the image automatically, hopefully. Yeah, seems okay. Now we need to do the same with the path. And so here I have the path dimension. So compute tight bounds gives me the bounding box of the path, meaning what is the rectangle that the path is covering. And here I have a destination, which is, I did 200, 300 times the aspect ratio, but here you can do whatever. Actually, maybe we can play with some of these values. And then if I go to the documentation, maybe here, we should give, so we have like a feedbox component where you give the source and destination of your path, and it calculates the scaling basically automatically. So maybe we're going to try that. Let's see.
Yeah. And something of note here, your canvas is almost like your root view that is available there. And that's where everything, like you mentioned it earlier, like anything that you're doing is in this like Skia canvas outside of the React Native tree, essentially.
Correct. And yeah, so that looks good. So you see here, I can change the destination value to make it bigger, or even change the aspect ratio, right? So if I put, I don't know, 600, so it's going to be much larger. Yeah. So you can play with these values.
Yeah, and I assume the 0, 0 means X, 0, Y, 0. So it's starting it in the top left corner. So if you were to move that 0, 10, it would move it down 10 pixels.
So actually, I'm not sure because we use, I think what we do, let's have a look. Here, basically, what I know for sure is that if I put 20, I'm going to do, okay, my absolute width is 180. So, but if it's going to do something, yeah, it works. Okay. I was not sure it would work. But yeah.
Nice.
No, it does work. And yeah, maybe we can add the linear gradient. So so there's a couple of ways to do it. Here, if I set a linear gradient, so you can have groups, so a bit like in SVG. So if I set, let's see, I have a linear gradient component, then it's going to apply basically to all children, the linear gradient, right? Or if I do blur or anything, it's going to be applied to the children, or you can set it as a child of the path component. So I need some colors. Let's do up. I'm not sure what. Yeah, sure. And we need the start position. So it's a linear gradient, so it's a line. So we need a start position and an end position. So start. I think here, since we have 0, 0, I'm going to do 0, 0. But you know what? Let's see. So here I have a point, 0, 0. And maybe I do so 0 x value, right? We do an horizontal line, and 200. Let's see. Something is not.
We lost it.
Let's see.
Nice.
So actually, no, this is I got it wrong. This is vertical line. What we want to do is an horizontal line. So 200, 0. And, maybe you do 600. But actually what you would like to do, so that's interesting. What you would like to do is to say, go to the end to whatever the path is. Like, I don't know if it's 600, it's like, and we do have the path dimension here.
Yeah.
So you could say, we do have a utility method. So where we would say, but this is where it's going to get tricky somehow, where I can say, so this is my bounding box. So the rectangle, that's the path text. And I could do, we have a utility that says, take the top left of this bounding box. So we can do this. And then I can say, take the top right of the path. And yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so these utilities are there to help you. So you don't have to do the math. So you're not always doing, the source dot, left your value and then multiplying, and it then gets messy within
yes. And I just clicked on the, because maybe we can set some more interesting colors. I don't know if this is better. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And maybe also what we want to do is, let me see. We're going to draw the path twice. And here I'm going to do it in white. This one I can remove, it's not used. And I'm going to make the stroke width bigger. So it creates like a nice sticker outline.
Yeah.
And maybe we can add a shadow also. So there's a shadow. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, I see it. I don't know if you see it. It's subtle, but
I see it. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and I think this kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the developer experience, where you have all these utilities to help you do it, and the documentation. If you take a look at the website, documentation has a lot of helpful examples on there. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Any other cool stuff for draw that we can do, or like this path that we could do?
So one thing we can do is we can do an animation. So there is like there is a start and end property to the path. So if I say end 0.5, it only draws half of the path. And obviously, if you animate on this, you can create like some cool animation, right? Because you have see like
fill in.
And then actually one thing also you can do, you have the start. So even if you want the path to, to maybe like start from the middle and go left and right. And so here you have like full control. And we can, we can use reanimated to animate it. So,
okay.
And the cool thing here is because, as we mentioned, this is not the React Native tree. It's like when you enter Canva, it's like its own reconcilier, is that we can pass reanimated values directly. In React Native, if you use reanimated, you have to create animation component or animated.view and so on. Here, you can just pass a value and it will work.
Okay, yeah. So in this scenario, you would reach for reanimated to get you to animate the, hello writing out in cursive, the start and end value.
Definitely, yes. And I don't know if you followed, but now also the way reanimated works is that there is like this worklet core, which is like now a separate package.
Yeah.
And that's really what we use for animations. And yeah, because there are other utilities in reanimated, which are more like declarative, but made to work with like native views. And you also mentioned React Native Ease, which is also like a declarative approach. And here what we do is that we use React Native worklets to really deeply integrate with animations. And
we're back.
We're
good.
Okay. I think maybe we can create an animation value to animate just the path here.
Yeah, that would be nice to see.
So we call it progress. So use shared value. So usually I have like loop utility component to automatically. But you know what? Let's try to do it manually. So I'm going to create an effect, and I'm going to assign an animation to the progress value. So I'm going to do with timing, and maybe we make it slow. And here I can, I'm going to remove start, and I'm going to do progress. And of course, here you see, so the mistake, and even here the auto completion is making, and many people make, is that they do progress.value, but
Yeah.
progress.value is actually the content of the shared value, not the shared value itself. So here it's really important that you do just progress.
Just
right?
progress.
And you see like the auto completion really doesn't want me to do it. But let's see. Yeah, then you see it nicely.
Nice.
And we can assign it also to the outline. So something like this.
That's pretty cool. That's nice. Yeah. You could see like a nice splash screen, like hello, like welcome to my app kind of thing. That's pretty cool.
And I think, let's say here you have, there is a callback when the animation is done. So maybe when the animation is done, we say, yeah, we go back to 0 maybe. Yeah. And
nice.
But maybe one thing, let me think. Maybe we can also animate the start value. So let's try.
I agree with Frank. It would be very inviting during onboarding experiences. Yeah.
So when the start is done, we set the progress value to 0. And maybe what we can do is also set start to 1. Let's see, I have no idea what I'm doing, but so then it's gonna
finish.
Undo the path from, yeah, exactly, from the, so let's try. So start, and maybe let's have a look. So now, yeah, you see it on, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and you're gonna disappear together. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
But you see, you mentioned that this is a pretty inviting animation. But what was really on my wish list is to have the color follow the geometry of the path, instead of like, just, and this is basically why I built Redraw, because I really wanted to have a nice.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, again, like if you're looking at this file, we haven't even hit 100 lines here, and you've put together a very cool. You could even say we remove it. We don't need the image. Like if we're talking about creating an onboarding experience that's very inviting, as Frank said, you're welcome. It says welcome in cursive. You're welcoming your users to your app. This is just, it would just be trimmed down this file, 50 lines where you're just getting a very nice, crisp animation done on your application, performant, and all that kind of stuff. No dropped frames.
And something I actually discovered only recently is that, so here, like I said, it's a path that we take from Figma or whatever, but there are actually font files that are like single stroke fonts, because usually a font is like the outline. So you have like both sides of the, you see, basically you have the white, so a regular font file, you basically would have the vector information you have would be basically the white part and not the middle part, but there are font files which are just the middle stroke, which is what we have here. And actually they need it because, when you do engraving or like 3D printing or things like this, you actually don't want the outline, because the outline is formed by the thing. And this can be very useful because you can have potentially, any text here instead of just hello. And it's something I discovered only like very recently, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so you can have it be in the font that you want, like your application follows.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So what else do you have to show us here?
So I mean, this looks like a little sticker, so maybe we can try to move it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see.
And so the way we do, so we're going to use gesture handler, of course. And so we can wrap, let's have a look. We can wrap gesture detector to the Canva. So from gesture, is that from gesture handler? That looks
Yeah.
good. And we need a gesture. So we need to create a gesture. So yeah, I think we're gonna do a. Is this correct? Or so let me have a look at the documentation. Here. So we have a pan gesture, yeah, and we just need to add. I mean, let's see.
Yeah, I need to.
Let's have a look. So we need some translate X, Y value. Let me clean this up here. So translate X. So the X position, the Y position.
Yeah, then you have the decay.
Y. And yeah, why not? Why not use a nice decay at the end based on velocity. And for the boundaries, we're going to use the screen. So I assume that left boundary would be 0, right boundary would be width for X, and 0 and height for. I assume that. Let's have a look. I need to remove these guys here. Oh, I don't have the root gesture detector.
Handler root view, no.
I'm not sure if it needs to be in a different component or if it will work here. Gesture.
Should handler root.
This one. Let's see if it works. And maybe I probably need a style flex one. Okay. Oh yeah, of course I'm. Okay, so nothing is happening because we have the values, but we don't do anything with it. So maybe I'm gonna add a group here, and I'm gonna do a transform. And you see again here, I mean, the auto completion is getting it wrong. So it's a common pitfall because here what you're gonna get, it's not gonna animate, right? You really need to pass a value and not the materialized value essentially. So what I need to do here is to create a use derived value called transform. So I often get, because the auto completion does this, I often get bug reports. Oh, it's not moving.
Yeah. Okay, and you're doing it as a group because we have the multiple paths within there that we want to move, right? So if if you just had one, you would essentially just transform that one.
Correct.
That one path XY, like DX and DY value of it, or whatever that value is.
Yeah. What's okay. Yeah. So let's have a look. Yeah. So it moves, and so here we only do translate X, translate Y, but you can pinch, you can
zoom,
rotate. So we have some examples where here essentially instead of translate X, translate Y, we have like a transformation matrix which represents. So it's a matrix is an array of values. But can represent any arbitrary transformation, so including translate X, translate Y, but also rotations, scales. And so instead of having these two values, you can, but maybe actually I think I have it somewhere here. Yes. So here it's a bit more complex example, but you can essentially apply any transformation. So pinch, rotation, and yeah, the pan gesture.
Okay. So you would or could, pinch and zoom in on an SVG or an image
Yes.
that you had to kind of almost like the Photos app on iOS. As you're looking at a photo, if you want to zoom in, you just kind of pinch it in. That's the same concept here.
And maybe I can show you something. Let's have a look. So let's say, because here I'm not showing the full picture. So let's say I have a second sticker. And so here they're always going to be
the same,
but let's do I say transform 2, and the second sticker is always, let's say, 500 to the left of, just to, for the sake of the example. So let's have a look. Yeah, so you see, maybe let me make it smaller, 200. Okay, but now that's not good because I'm always moving 2 stickers. And the reason is because obviously, what I'm moving is the full Canva.
Yeah.
And then I'm just applying the transform to like the elements, but the translations and so on, or even if you pinch, it's not what you want. So the way we fix this problem is that instead of wrapping the gesture detector in the Canva, I'm going to do I think I'm going to do a view container. I'm going to do a flex 1. And I'm going to overlay a view over a native view over the Canva. So I'm going to do a position absolute. I think maybe I can just use a style sheet absolute fill. So now I have a native view that overlays my Canva. And I need to import this guy here. And now what we can do is to say, I'm going to add the gesture detector for one of my sticker. And I'm going to, as a child, I'm going to set a view which will match the position basically of my sticker.
Okay.
And so I can remove this one. So here should still works. So you see the gesture detector is not applied to the Canva anymore at all.
Yeah.
It's applied to this view. And so maybe what I can do now is to set this view to have the same bounding box here. Okay, so this is where maybe it gets tricky because so here you see we apply a transformation to the path. And so now I feel like I don't really know the bounding box because it's transformed by this. So if I take source, maybe if I take destination actually, because destination is my, so let's try. And actually I can debug it. So what I can do is say, let's say I do width 200, height from, so I'm just putting random values. And I say background, half opaque, red. Or even half opaque black, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you see this is the thing. Let me reload. I would expect this guy to move. No, it's not moving
It's not moving.
because I'm not applying the transformation to it, which I should. Okay, so let me create use animated style, which is going to use this. So I'm going to call it style. And we're going to return these plus transformation. So transform. And so that would be the same here. Let me import this one. No.
Where did it go?
Where did it go? Oh, animated view.
Animated.view.
Okay. Okay. So now I'm tracking this element specifically, right? I mean, here I put some random values, but I guess if I do destination with, and maybe it's like destination with minus X, Y, but it's probably 0. Oh, yeah, now it's matching.
Yeah.
And so that's how we do specific element tracking. So now I can do this for any stickers, and they all have like their own gesture handler. And it's like perfectly in sync with, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. This actually brought up another question. Like, what if I had multiple stickers on my screen? I wanted to do tracking on them and all this kind of stuff. Is there an overhead for having multiple canvas, or would I just create one large canvas and input in it, put in a native view and all that kind of stuff? Or would you not recommend that?
So I think creating multiple canvases is pretty cheap. Okay. So here you would basically have like, something like the Canva image, and each sticker is its own Canva. I think that's okay. This approach with, here tracking the native view is pretty actually powerful, because you also have accessibility, and we're looking also at other things that you get for free. And we've been looking at a path. We've been looking into it, and I think it's a pretty powerful approach. But I would say, as a rule of thumb, creating canvases also is somewhat cheap, so you can also afford to have multiple canvases.
Okay. Yeah. That's helpful.
But for this example, I think it's nice to have everything in one Canva. And
for this scenario, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm also, thinking of a scenario where you have two stickers. You want to import multiple canvases. Is that a high overhead? And it sounds like it's not. So that's fine. Yeah. Obviously, in moderation, right? You have to kind of keep tracking and checking things. Not implementing them very freely and loosely.
Yeah, I think when in an example like this one, where you really need to leave this model where this model doesn't fit anymore, is so React Native is great at animating properties.
Yeah.
So as long as you animate properties of whatever this is, you're fine. But if you want to animate the drawing commands, so you see here, each path is like one drawing command. And if you want to animate the number of paths, so that's not something that, React programming model allows. And so this is when you need to switch to like what we call immediate mode, which is more like a video game loop, which we support as well. This is when basically when you want to animate outside properties and you want to animate on the drawing commands, this is when this model basically doesn't fit anymore.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. Awesome. Yeah. Do you have anything else to show us?
Maybe one last thing. So one thing that, so it's great with paths, you can do like a bunch of cool stuff. But the second thing you can do with Skia, which is pretty powerful, are shaders. And shaders is basically specialized GPU programming. And so we're not going to get into shaders. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But there is a website which has a great collection of shaders which are like ready to use. So it's called Shader Toy. And so you see, you have like all these beautiful things that you can, you can search, like you can browse, search for, and these you can integrate into React Native Skia, right? So anything you see here, so one which I like, Plasma examples. So you see, if you want to have like these flowing colors and also it's funny because people, so this is a shader language, so that's basically a program that is compiled and executed on GPU.
Okay.
And the way it works is that you get a XY value and then you return a color.
Okay.
And then you apply some math to get to this result, and you get like some, we call it uniform values. So it's like each, you see here, you get the time, so you can use it for animations. You can get like a cursor position. So here you have like some shader inputs. And these integrate very well in Skia.
Yeah.
I think.
If you're trying to build a hypnosis application.
An example here.
Wow.
And so the way it works is that you see, so you have, this is the little GPU program that you see, you have the same time variable and coordinate, you return the color, plus you have like some math, and you can set it to color the path. So that would be the, one thing you can do. You can do some cool effects. This is also this website. It's also like a community. People in the comments, they help each other. People build like proof of concepts, and it's a fun community. It's nice to spend time on this website. It's called shadertoy.com.
Yeah, it sounds like Jamin has some experience with it in the past.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. And again, like you mentioned earlier, this is cheap, and you're getting high performance. And just looking at that, it's almost like you're creating a hypnosis application right there. It's calming in a sense. That's pretty cool. Well, awesome. Yeah, so I think we're at a kind of good point here to kind of start wrapping up and stuff. I know at one point Robin asked a question I think it's a pretty cool one. Is remotion integration a goal so you could render redraw graphics into video?
Yes. So in fact, in the Redraw monorepo, there is a remotion project with a pretty cool example. And when we did the Redraw announcement, all the graphic motions were built with Redraw and remotion. Nice. So there is not a single pixel on screen if it's computer generated.
Yeah.
That is not done with Redraw and remotion. So, and actually it's funny because it used to be that when I got started with React Native Skia, at the beginning, we couldn't do everything with remotion. I was like still trying to get the hang of it and so on. So sometimes I would use other graphic motions, but now it's 100%.
100%. Nice.
Especially with LLMs and so on, it's hard to beat. It's a value proposition that is really hard to beat.
Yeah, and it shows. It's very cool. It's high performant. It's buttery smooth. It's great. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, this was a very great topic. I urge anyone that's watching this video, check out the repo, check out the different. I'll make sure to include it in the show notes. The different we drew, we animated, we moved it around the screen, and showed examples of your ability to pinch and zoom. Let me share again.
So so you see here it's the same hello path than earlier, but done with Redraw, and you see now the color follows.
Nice.
And the stroke width is variable. So you see when it animates, it gets bigger and then smaller.
Yeah.
So this was on my wish list, and so I had to do it myself.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think if you can share with me, and then I'll share it, with the audience later, any redraw documentation that you may have, or resources, that would be very helpful. Yeah, awesome. Do that. Yeah, so we animated, we styled it, we moved it, and check out the documentation to the React Native Skia documentation. All that will be included in the show notes. It's so cool, so performant, and easy to do, right? And you showing the shaders there at the end. That was pretty cool, and just kind of seamless with something that I say a lot of. React Native wouldn't be possible without the open source community and everyone out there doing stuff like that. And Shader Toy is just another example of that, where we need the community to kind of help us and put together this stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also just the way it integrates also with Reanimated, and I mean with the people at Software Mentions, like we had many discussions, and it's a lot of things coming together. That's for sure. It's good to remind ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, again, William, I want to thank you for doing this. Before we close off, I like to kind of end these off with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What type of music or specific song do you like to have playing when you're coding or vibe coding?
Okay, so, and I know this is, I think, because last time in the podcast I had an answer, and it seemed like it was a very unpopular answer actually for coding. And so I listen to a lot of music and electronic music, but actually for coding, I like podcast, I like voice. I'm not sure why, but I do a lot of podcasting during coding actually. But if not, I listen to a lot of electronic music.
Who's your favorite?
So I love, it's pretty famous, but maybe not so much. Jan Blomqvist is, that's my favorite DJ.
Recently, I've been into Nora En Pure. I don't know if you've heard her.
Nice. Yeah.
She's good. So what are favorite recent movies or TV shows?
Okay, so a movie which I really loved recently, and it's gonna sound a bit crazy, but I do think there is a bit. So it's called The Menu, and it's about The Menu, and it's a movie about. It's a dark comedy about a 5-star restaurant, like the best restaurant in the world, and it's a very dark comedy. It's also a bit of a social commentary.
Okay.
But actually, it's interesting because I do find that, of course, because it's about also the craftsmanship. So I always find sometimes there is like a big analogy between programming and cooking. So, for instance, one of my favorite documentaries, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which is about the best sushi chef in Japan, and the parallel is, because it's about owning your craft,
Yeah.
And this is why, I always say we need to massage the octopus, because that's what he says in the documentary. He says we used to massage the octopus 30 minutes, but now, of course, we realize if we do it 45 minutes, it's much softer. And so that's some things which are food related. I really love, like movies or documentaries.
Nice. Is that the movie with Anya Taylor-Joy from Queen's Gambit, right?
Yes, correct.
And I always forget the guy's name.
Ralph
something.
Fiennes or
Those are both good actors. I need to check this movie out. If you like this type of stuff, have you seen Bear?
Yes. I loved it. I don't want to give any spoilers, but one of my, there are so many beautiful scenes also in season 2 when they go to different restaurants, different places. I thought this was very cool. One of my favorite scene. They have so many great moments, but is when he meets his tormentor. Right, there is a chef who was torturing him, and then he meets him and. I don't know. I thought it was such a cool scene, and
Yeah. No, I remember that scene. Yeah. What are 1 to 2 books you've been recommending recently or reading recently?
Good question. So okay, this one it's gonna sound a bit too on the nose, but it's true. It's so one which was it's a Steve Jobs biography.
Okay.
And one thing which I really took away from the biography is how it's really this how like in many moments where they're at Apple, or there's like moments of playfulness, or sometimes they do jokes or they play pranks. And really I feel like me as a so I was taught software engineering in university and so on, and in France, so it's very serious and hierarchical. And sometimes like I had really forgotten to be like playful and have fun with things and so on. And that's I mean, there's many aspects of the Steve Jobs biography, but this is one that really I feel like I took away from the book that I thought was very good.
You stole my thunder for my next question. So what's
And
one
but
piece
wait,
of it?
so there is one book, because sorry, I
Yeah.
remember one book which I've gifted this book I think at least 5 times, is the joy of I forgot the name. The joy of tidying up. From the Marie Kondo. Was the Marie Kondo? What was the title? The joy of
The joy of tidying up, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sounds, yeah.
So this one I have gifted many times.
Okay, good to know.
Again, here many parallels with. Anyways, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, the joy of tidying up. So always like cleaning up your code, rewriting your code. Yeah, I get it. You mentioned like the Steve Jobs like motto from the biography is, find the playfulness, be, not so serious and stuff like that. But my next question was, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone just starting out in React Native?
I think so. Now in React Native, because also the technology is getting quite mature, you can like build things, like you can build big things with little, right? You have a lot of expressiveness, and you have the LLMs that help you, which I think is fantastic, and I think you should embrace it. But also my advice is, like, if it's interesting to you, learn what's behind the scene, because there is like really gold. I give you a small example. So we were talking about these shaders, right?
Yeah.
And now there is, we can write these shaders actually in TypeScript, so you don't even have to, type GPU. You probably heard about it.
Yeah.
You don't even need to learn a different language, and there is also some utilities on top of it that does a lot of the work for you, and the expressiveness is getting like so incredible. And I think you should embrace it, absolutely. But also, like if it's interesting to you, learn like how it works behind the scene, because it's very, very cool. And in fact, there is a resource about learning shaders, which is called webgpufundamentals.com. And this actually, because we were talking about books, this reads like a good book. And maybe, it's not for everyone, but if you have a spark with it, you should go with it, I think.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Web GPU fundamentals. Be sure to give that.
It's not a book, but it should be.
Yeah.
It reads very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, someone should publish it then.
Yeah.
Okay. So my last question, and this is one of my favorite ones to kind of ask. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, and how can our listeners be useful to you?
So I mean, YouTube and Twitter, this is really where I'm available. My email is pretty public on Git, so you also posting issues on GitHubs and things like this. And really, like how the audience can be useful to me is really helping me, massage the octopus. So bug reports, telling me, sharing pain points. Helping me connect with the reality on the ground, right? And I think, it's always a cycle between like taking new big leaps. Okay, let's bet everything on Web GPU. Let's do Redraw. But also it's a cycle where we need to, okay, let's massage the octopus. Let's like make it work for everyone and things like this.
Yeah, I like that. I think the motto of this episode is let's massage the octopus. That's going to be for me.
Yes.
Gant, you are right on time. We are just about to begin, so thanks for coming. No, I'm kidding. We're wrapping up now. So I really want to thank the audience for coming and listening to this, and anyone's going to listen to this after. Really appreciate it. And William, thank you for coming onto the show. This was a very fun episode. It was kind of nice to see React Native Skia in action and kind of get a little teaser into what's happening and just get to talk to you again. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. To everyone else, please don't forget to subscribe, and please always reach out and let me know if you have any topic suggestions that you'd like me to kind of cover in the future. I'd be more than happy to. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.